Hey everybody, welcome to CSE Live. I'm Mark Tier, founder and CEO of Black Spectacles, and I'm joined with Patrick Finnegan, our producer of CSE Live here at Black Spectacles, and architect Marissa Yee, who's going to be hosting a discussion on what's on the CSE, key content areas on the CSE, and smart study strategies to pass the CSE on your first try. If you're joining us for the first time, Black Spectacles is a leader in ARE prep. And at Black Spectacles, we work with learning scientists and architects to ensure you're studying the right content and that you retain it so that you can pass on your first try. As you may know, we've launched a CSE course. And so we built everything that you need to pass the CSE now with our brand new CSE course, including new video lectures with motion graphics and 3D animation, practice exams that are as close to the real thing as you can get, and unlike anyone else, with our Pass the CSE guarantee, in the unlikely event that you don't pass your exam, we will pay for you to retake the exam. You'll also receive access to our deck of flashcards, which you can customize, quizzes after each video section, and detailed content on the hardest parts of the exams. And then lastly, our study guide process, our guided study process, organizes all of your study material into a daily study plan, showing you what to study each day that you can customize to align with your exam date. So it's super helpful, takes a lot of the kind of planning and pressure off. And what's nice is it's all built upon a curriculum that ensures you're learning the right content. And of course, they all work together in our custom-built platform to ensure that you retain the information so you remember it for your CSE exam. You may know with our ARE prep material, our pass rates are 40% higher than the national average, and our members report passing in half the time of the national average. Well, we use the same standards to develop our CSE exam, and we stand behind our work, which is why we offer our CSE guarantee, which, as you know, with that guarantee, in the unlikely event that you don't pass, we'll pay for you to retake the exam. And drum roll, please. Super excited after a heck of a lot of work on behalf of our entire team and many people who've helped us outside of it, including, of course, Marissa. We're very excited to announce the launch of our brand new CSE course designed to help you pass the California Supplemental exam in record time. You may know in the prior instances of CSE Live, we talked about it coming. Well, we launched it earlier this week. So super excited about that. Again, you'll get everything you need to pass the CSE, including expert crafted California specific study materials. So we didn't, repurpose a bunch of other stuff. We built brand new content from scratch. And then you're going to get a practice exam experience as close to the real thing as you can get, customizable flashcards and quizzes, and of course, the structured guided study plan customized to your exam date. And what's nice is that we're offering, if you join today at blackspectacles.com/CSE-pricing, you can take advantage of a 10% discount for the first 100 members. We did send some marketing out yesterday, and so that 100 is getting smaller by the minute. Be sure to take advantage of that, and you'll see the discount. I believe, Patrick, correct me if I've got this wrong, but that discount, I believe, is live on the CSE pricing page, so folks can take advantage of it there. As a side note, if you're using Black Spectacles through your firm, be sure to let your firm leadership know so they can essentially add that on to your license for your entire, for yourself, of course, and for your entire team. So a lot of stuff happening over here at Black Spectacles as it relates to the CSE. So really excited to help you all get through that exam and get that license. Our next CSE Live session will be on September 10th, where we will be covering how to understand California practice. You can go to blackspectacles.com/podcast/CSE-live to sign up. Should be a really good session. And for today, we're going to be engaging exclusively on our community. So community.blackspectacles.com. Head over to that URL, and right at the top, you'll see we've pinned a thread called CSE Live. What's on the CSE, key topics and smart study strategies. If you have a question as we're going through CSE Live today, please post your question there. Myself and Patrick, we're going to be keeping our eyes on that along with a couple of my other teammates, I believe. And so we'll grab those questions and make sure that we get through those at the end of the session today. And by the way, everyone who posts in that thread today will be eligible to win a free Black Spectacles t-shirt. Literally all you have to do is go over there and say hello, and you're registered. And of course, don't forget to stay tuned to the end of the episode to see if you've won. So with that exciting introduction, I'd like to welcome today's guest, Marissa Yee. In addition to working with us here at Black Spectacles, Marissa is an architect based in San Francisco, which happens to be in California. And welcome, Marissa.
Thank you very much. I'm really excited to be here. Today, we're going to be looking at the CSE handbook and speaking to the most important information that you'll want to know about from the CSE handbook, including what's on the CSE, key content areas, and then after that, we'll do a deeper dive into smart study strategies to pass the CSE on your first try. And I'll be speaking to my experience on how I was able to transition from studying from the AREs to studying for the CSE. The CSE handbook is your guide to this exam. All the information you'll need to know will be described in the CSE handbook. This CSE handbook is like the ARE guidelines, but the look and feel is going to be different. The CSE is actually administered by the California Architects Board, and it's not administered by NCARB. So there will be some differences. You'll notice the graphic differences mainly when you're looking at that CSE handbook, but similar to how you use those ARE guidelines and scour through them, I would recommend downloading that CSE handbook and taking a highlighter or some underline tool to that and picking out key information, and we'll also discuss that key information today. The purpose of the CSEs, according to California Architects Board, there are facets of architectural practice in California that are unique and that are not necessarily covered by the NCARB exams. So that's really the purpose of the CSE according to the California Architects Board. It ensures that candidates are able to demonstrate that they have the necessary architectural knowledge and skills to respond to the unique conditions present in California. And the CSE handbook lists a number of these unique conditions. The couple that I want to mention that are really prevalent within the exam are the varied landscape and climate, the high seismicity, and then regulations and entitlements. Those topics are not covered on the NCARB ARE exams, but they are covered on the CSE. We'll do a deeper dive today about some of those topics. So where do you take the CSE? So it's administered by PSI, so we should be familiar with those PSI test centers, but something to note is that you should be checking the CSE handbook for the test center locations, because not all PSI test centers will offer the CSE. So maybe your local PSI test center that you are used to going to may or may not offer the CSE. If you're in California, there will be a number of test centers that will offer it. There are also some out-of-state test centers that offer the CSE. So if you are trying to become licensed in California, but are not physically living in California, there are still options for you to take the CSE out of state without having to travel into California. And testing accommodations are available. Again, check the CSE handbook for the requirements for that. Here's a little bit of a breakdown on the format of the CSE. It will be 100 multiple choice questions. So there are no case studies, there are no drag and drop, there are no click on this image, there are no questions that are about selecting multiple that apply. For the select multiple that apply, they do have a way of doing that where you still have multiple choice, your answer A, B, C, and D, but they will have like a list of options. So they'll list option 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then within the multiple choice, they'll say answer A is 1 only, answer B is 1 and 2, answer C is 3 and 4, and answer D is 1, 2, 3, 4. So they have their way of doing select all that apply, but it is formatted, everything is formatted as a multiple choice question. Important to note, you are not penalized for incorrect answers. So this means if you happen to run out of time, which I personally didn't experience and hopefully should not be the case for you, you should at least try to select an answer for every question, even if you don't have time to fully get to it. You do have 3.5 hours for this exam, which I felt was pretty comfortable. For me, it felt more like the pace I had to go through for PCM and PJAM, where I felt like I still had some time at the end to review answers. It did not feel like a PPD or a PDD exam where you're really rushing for time at the end of the exam. Another difference from the CSE to the ARE, there are no designated breaks. I know personally that I cannot sit for 3.5 hours without having a restroom break. So what I did do was I answered all the questions, the first time. Then I took a break where your clock continues to run, the time continues to run down, which is okay. I had planned for it in my mind, so it didn't freak me out at all. Answered the 100 questions, took a quick restroom break, maybe for 5 minutes or so, came back into the room. The clock was still ticking, but I still had plenty of time to review my answers. You will be notified of pass-fail at the end of the exam, and the cut score is not publicly stated, unlike the AREs. So you're just trying your best to answer as many questions as you can correctly. If you pass, you will receive an application for licensure, which will allow you to apply for that license in California. And if you happen to fail, you will receive another CSE application, which will help you get registered for a retake. So now we're going to dive into the various content areas on the CSE. On the right side here, we have a little table which is showing the weighted value of each content area. And something I want to, actually we'll get to that a little later, but for now, we're going to focus on the first content area, which is contract development and project planning. So this is most similar to the PCM and PJM AREs. This area assesses the candidate's knowledge related to professional responsibility across various project types, planning requirements, and construction contract arrangements, including knowledge of tools and techniques to coordinate, oversee, and execute a project to mitigate risk and achieve its objectives. So it's about managing the project, but it's also about firm responsibilities. Some key pieces of information that were not covered on the areas that you may want to know about are the Architects Practice Act and the California Code of Regulations. And that's gonna be weighted at 25% of the exam. Heading into the next content area, we have schematic design and discretionary approvals. And this one is really important. This one is the highest weighted category at 30%. And because of the schematic design element, it is most similar to PA. However, there's a lot of new information that will be in this content area that was not covered on the AREs. So this area assesses the candidate's knowledge related to identifying and evaluating site project opportunities and constraints through developing design concepts that incorporate the stakeholders' needs, as well as, and this is the important part, integrating regulatory requirements and approvals. So in California, we have a lot of various regulatory requirements and approvals that are specific to each project. So not every project will need to go through every single regulatory requirement and approval, but a good portion of the CSE is about identifying which regulatory requirements need to be followed for which project, and then how to go through that regulatory approval process. Some key buzzwords here would be CEQA and the California Building Standards Code. In the next CSE Live, we will do a deep dive into a couple of the topics on the CSE that were not covered on the AREs, so California specific topics. So if you're interested in that, definitely come out next month to our CSE Live. The following content area is design development, and this would be most similar to the PPD exam. This area assesses the candidate's knowledge related to developing detailed design solutions, evaluating building systems and project costs, preparing documents, and performing quality review in conformance with the project requirements and applicable laws and regulations. So nothing too specific to California here. It is worth noting that, you know, even though PPD is quite a long exam for the AREs, it's only going to be weighted 15% of the overall exam. So in my opinion, this should not be an area where you're focusing a lot of study time on, especially since you already studied a lot of this to pass the PPD exam in the first place. A very similar vibe for our next content area, which is construction documents and permitting. So this is going to be most similar to PDD. It assesses the candidate's knowledge related to managing a project team, producing coordinated and comprehensive construction documents, processing and addressing regulatory agency comments, and obtaining approvals. So the only part there that is really relevant to California's practice specifically would be the obtaining approvals, since there are various California agencies that you might need to obtain those approvals from. But again, this is only weighted at 10% of the overall exam. So if you think about this content area and the previous content area, design development, those are weighted at 10% and 15% respectively. If you add those, that's only 25%, which is still less than the content area for schematic design and discretionary approvals at 30%. So my overall takeaway here is that even though these two content areas were highly tested on the AREs, it's not necessarily a large focus on the CSEs, so I wouldn't spend too much time studying these. And finally, for our last content area, we have project bidding and construction. It is most similar to the CE exam, and this area assesses the candidate's knowledge related to the bidding process and construction administration, from assisting with initial contractor selection to post-construction services. All right, so this is our construction administration phase content area. One relevant piece of California information would be the California Public Contract Code, and this is weighted at 20% of the overall exam. So what we're seeing here is that, it's not so much about the PPD and the PDD for the CSE. A lot of it is going to be about the discretionary approvals. It's going to be about construction administration, the roles and responsibilities of the owner, architect, and contractor during construction. And then another large chunk are really those contracts related to practice management and project management. So those are like the three main areas you can think about. And then there's also some element of design development and construction documents. So that's our overview of the content areas in the CSE. Now we're going to do a shift into talking about smart study strategies to pass the CSE on your first try. So this first bullet point here is exactly what I did when I finished my AREs and was transitioning to studying for the CSE. So first of all, your ARE notes are probably great. If you've made it to this point and you've passed the ARE, your ARE notes are great. I would not throw those away. I would duplicate those, save a copy of your ARE notes, duplicate them, and then remove any notes that do not align with the CSE task or knowledge statement. So what we looked at previously were the content areas. If you take a look at the CSE handbook, under each content area, there is a list of knowledge statements, quite similar to the ARE guidelines, where we have objectives for each exam. There are knowledge statements on the CSE. So I would take a pass at looking at those knowledge statements in the CSE handbook and identifying whether or not a certain page of notes aligns with a certain knowledge statement topic. If it aligns, great, keep it in your notes for the CSE. If it doesn't align with any knowledge statement, I would remove that and not spend time studying that topic. So that was the first thing I did, essentially purging my ARE notes of any information that isn't relevant for the CSE. Once I purged my notes and distilled it down to information that was on the CSE, obviously there will be new information that is tested on the CSE that I simply don't have notes for yet from studying for the AREs. So next what I did was I focused my studying on topics that were specific to the CSE. Mark just did a great intro about how we have new CSE content at Black Spectacles. Highly recommend looking through that. In addition to the CSE resources we have at Black Spectacles, read through the original reference material, especially those that are new to you, including the reference material on the California Architects Board website. It's you can think of it as like the ARE guidelines at the end of the ARE guidelines, where they have primary and supplemental resources. I'm specifically thinking of like the AIA contracts or ADA 2010. The reference material on the California Architects Board are not going to be textbooks. They're just going to be documents from, let's say, Ventura County, documents from a certain planning department that describe the processes for permitting and approvals and would be great for you to read firsthand. So similar to how you studied for the AREs and you learned about the AAA contracts, not just through your studying with Black Spectacles or whatever you use, but you also read the AAA contracts firsthand. I think it's really important that you also read this reference material firsthand to get an idea of what is being discussed in that reference material. So take notes on these reference materials as they relate to a CSE task or knowledge statement. So again, similar to how you studied for the AREs, not every single thing that is mentioned in this reference material is going to be relevant on the exam. So make sure you're looking at the knowledge statement, maybe you have the reference material up on one side of your screen and the knowledge statements are on the other side of your screen, and you're making sure that whatever you're taking notes on is actually relevant to those knowledge statements. Something that helped me was that I made flashcards to help me commit new information to memory. Specifically, there are a lot of agencies that are covered on the CSE, and it was hard for me to remember exactly what each agency does, when they would apply on a project, when they wouldn't apply on a project, and whether or not they have permitting authority. So flashcards help me to remember the agencies. There are also various differences between the California Building Code and the IBC. So I also made flashcards to help me understand those differences as well. For our next smart study strategy, I would say leverage your work experience. Prior work on California projects can be helpful, especially when it comes to agencies and permitting. So if you have, gone through that process on a California project, you kind of understand, what the steps are that you need to take to have a successfully permitted project. Try to keep yourself focused on the actual question and information that is being provided, because as we know, every project is unique and every project has unique conditions. Most likely, for the purposes of the exam, they are not trying to test unique conditions. They're trying to test these for the standard condition or the standard application. So just be aware that when you are leveraging that work experience from previous projects, that you are, understanding what the general path is, and then understanding where your project had a unique condition and had to deviate from that general path. For our next smart study strategy, just remember that the exam only contains multiple choice. So you will not need to prepare for any sort of case study, which may or may not be a positive for you. But something to note is that because there are no case studies on the exam, you will not have resources like the IBC or the AIA contracts or ADA 2010 to refer to. You just need to be sure that you are familiar enough with those resources, because you aren't going to have access to them during the exam. And for our last smart study strategy, there are some sample test questions on the California Architects Board website. Those will help you get a sense of the style and format. And then another plug for our Black Spectacles CSE content. I believe, and team, please correct me if I'm wrong, I believe there are practice questions available with that CSE content. So that would also be a great resource for you. And just to summarize our smart study strategies, so again, reusing your ARE notes. Your ARE notes are great and they will be helpful on the CSE. Once you gather your ARE notes, focus your studying on those topics that are specific to the CSE and use that to help fill out your existing ARE notes. Leverage your work experience and just instead of try to make sure that you are, having like a bird's eye view of what your work experience was. There may be unique conditions that you have to employ on a certain project, and that unique condition may or may not be what the actual exam question is asking about. The exam only contains multiple choice, so you don't need to worry about case studies. And then finally, leverage your Black Spectacles content as well as the questions on the California Architects Board website for sample test questions.
Thanks so much, Marissa. Producer Patrick here. I'm monitoring our community now. We just have a couple questions right now, so perfect for our live Q&A session. If you have any questions, you can go to community.blackspectacles.com, and the first thread that you're going to see there, it's called CSE Live, What's on the CSE, Key Topics and Smart Study Strategies. You can drop a question there and I'll bring them up live to Marissa. We also have a couple teammates too that are licensed architects that are monitoring the community right now that can answer any of your questions. But Marissa, one of the first ones, I believe that we did answer this in our previous episode of CSE Live, but it's essentially, is it recommended to study for the CSE prior to completing the ARE exam?
I would say for the information on the CSE that is duplicative from the AREs, yes, it's great to know that information. It'll be relevant on both, let's say, your PPD and PDD exams as well as the CSE. For new information that is on the CSE that isn't covered on the AREs, I personally would say to wait until you're finished with the AREs, and then you can start studying for the CSE, things like agencies and permitting and seismicity. Those types of topics that are specific to the CSE, I would say to hold off until you're finished with the AREs. But then again, every test taker is different. You know yourself as a test taker and what works best for you.
Yeah, love to hear it. And then this next one kind of rolls into what would be our CSE course that we just released. But do the SMART strategies that we just talked about right there, are they the best study methods for people that did their ARE years ago? So didn't just complete an exam last month, but it's actually been a while, they've been in practice and everything. And at least I can take this one from my perspective, but I would say go through our CSE course that we just released. We have a 30-day and a 60-day plan that lay out what videos you should be watching each day, what quizzes you should be taking. And there's also a practice exam in there too that mirrors the actual CSE exam. I believe that even if you haven't taken an exam in years, if you were just to go through that course, you'll have everything that you need to pass on your first try. But Marissa, if you have any other tips or study strategies for someone that really hasn't taken an exam in a minute.
That's a great question, and I'm glad you raised it because I don't think we really touched on that today. So I would say for those who just took the ARE, your ARE notes are great, and you can continue to use a portion of them for the CSE. For those of you who took the ARE years ago, the Black Spectacles CSE content will be great for you because it does not just cover California specific topics. It will cover everything that is on the exam, including those elements that are on the ARE. It's not just, a copy paste of our ARE content. We did go through and edit that ARE content that will also show up on the CSE and make sure that we are getting it to the correct level of detail that you will need to know for the CSE. So I would, again, plug our Black Spectacles new CSE content. Any other tips? I would say continue to do practice questions for those who have been taking the AREs recently. Your brain is kind of in that studying and exam taking, answering exam questions mode. But for someone who has been practicing for a while, your brain may not be used to all of that, studying and answering questions and sitting for 3.5 hours to answer questions. And so try to leverage the sample test questions and not just answering a couple a day, but I would recommend, actually force yourself to sit down for the duration of the exam and get your brain used to answering 100 questions in 3.5 hours, because that in itself is exercise for your brain, essentially.
Thanks, Marissa. And it looks like we have one more question from Kristen, and she said that she attempted the CSE about a few months ago and was surprised to see about 130 questions. Is there a range of the number of questions you can kind of expect to see?
Oh, okay, that's interesting. So maybe we'll need to go back and double check that. So it may be, and this is me not fully researching this, it may be that there are 130 questions, but only 100 are scored. So that extra 30 questions could be what they call pre-test questions, which they are putting into the exam to see how people perform on them, but does not actually count towards your score. So maybe there's a way that our team can double check that, and then
Marissa, actually, sorry to interrupt you here, but yeah, you're absolutely right. With standardized testing, that's a really common practice where they'll throw in some new questions or maybe even some old questions. And not to get too much into the weeds, but they use these questions to assess competency in certain items, and so sometimes they're basically testing, is this a good question to assess competency? And so it's pretty common. NCARB does the same thing, so yeah, there may very well be additional questions, but just like you said, Marissa, our understanding is that there are 100 questions that count. So you might see extras. And of course, it won't say this is a test question. They'll just be 130 questions. So, or however many additional ones they add.
Great, and thank you to that person who posted that in the ARE community to help us clarify that for everyone.
Sounds good. With that, looks like that is all the questions we have for our live Q&A. But also, if you have any questions while maybe you're studying tonight or going through lunch, you can drop them in our community, and we have a team of licensed architects that monitor our community too that can answer any question you may have about the CSE too. But with that, Marissa, Thank you so much for helping us with this episode today. And then I'm going to toss this over to Mark.
Yeah, so thanks to both Marissa and Patrick. And just a quick side note, we got a couple questions in our chat in the community today asking, hey, I would like to get my firm to have access to the Black Spectacles CSE content. There's like 20 ways to do it. The easiest way to do that, probably just send an email to sales@blackspectacles.com. For your firm. It's just kind of a generic email that will go to our sales colleagues. That's Evan and Brendan and Eric and Michael. They'll get that email, and I will as well. So if you just send it to sales@blackspectacles.com, I can put you in touch, or you'll get in touch with the right person, and can provide all sorts of information. But again, thank you, Marissa. It's been as always a pleasure to have you, and appreciate everything you're doing to help support the architecture community.
Thanks for having me.
Of course, if you're joining us again for the first time, Black Spectacles is a leader in ARE prep, soon to be CSE prep as well. At Black Spectacles, we work with learning scientists and architects to ensure you're studying the right content and that you retain it so that you pass on the first try. We're very excited to announce, as we did earlier today, the launch of our brand new CSE course, which we launched just a couple of days ago. It's designed to help you pass the California Supplemental exam in real time. And just like our ARE prep, you'll get everything you need to pass the CSE on your first try, including expert crafted California specific study materials, a practice exam as close to the real thing as you can get, customizable flashcards and quizzes, and a structured study plan that's customized to your exam date. You can join today at blackspectacles.com/CSE-pricing to take advantage of a 10% discount for the first 100 members. And as I mentioned earlier today, as I said, we launched a couple of days ago, and that 100 members is going down pretty fast. So would encourage all of you to take advantage of that at this URL, blackspectacles.com/CSE-pricing. And if you're using Black Spectacles through your firm, be sure to let your firm leadership know so they can unlock access for your entire team. And as I said, if your firm doesn't have access to any of our content, or regardless, if they do, just send an email to sales@blackspectacles.com. I'll get it, and our sales team will get it, and then we can put you in touch with the right person. Our next CSE Live session will be on September 10th, where we'll be covering how to understand California practice. You can visit blackspectacles.com/podcast-CSE-live to register for that one. So I always encourage people to go ahead and register for it. Even if you can't participate live, you'll definitely get the replay. So go ahead and take care of that. Today, I'd like to congratulate Matt.Neisch. You posted on our community today and just won a free Black Spectacles t-shirt. We'll reach out via email to get your size and shipping information, so we'll be in touch soon. And just a reminder, if you'd like to be eligible to win a free t-shirt, post a question or just say hello over in our community during our next episode. Our community is always active. It's not just for CSE Live. As Patrick mentioned, we have a number of licensed architects who have their eyes on the community, and so you basically have free resource on the community to ask any sort of question relating to these exams, and we're happy to help. Finally, be sure to take our survey, which you'll find in your email after this episode, and share any suggestions that you may have. We actually read every word that you write and use all that feedback to tune our next episodes. So thanks for tuning in.